gave everyone.
At some point, Laura, I did want to get an answer. I still don't understand the discrepancy between when we do the math of 153 feet length times 53 feet width.
I think it was 123.
123, excuse me, thank you.
Yeah,
we end up with close to 9,800. So
for the 2 stories.
For the 2 stories, yet you're only approaching 7,000.
Lobby area, because it's...
Well, something else is missing.
We looked at the plan. I guess Catherine bumped us out.
Well, it must be on here.
elevator.
No, I mean, those numbers are well known, right? The 123
These are
feet
net,
by-
this is net square feet, not gross square feet.
Okay, so each of these rooms, in fact,
But
has
you also, and I don't think the net square feet certainly includes a double, what you're counting the lobby, even though it's...
No, we didn't. We counted the
But they're
footprint.
not counting
It's the footprint
the
of the
stage
building.
hours,
It's
the
123 by
elevators,
52.
things like that.
The
So-
second story was 67 by 52.
I mean, my conclusion is that for each of these office spaces, you almost have to have a multiplier of 1.5 to get to, because of the corridors and the stairwell, and
Right.
so this. I mean, any reduction in these functions is in fact bringing down the total size by another 50%.
Same, okay.
People will be asking why those numbers are so different.
That's a good point, because these numbers are not adding up to the building size. They're just adding up to the functional space size, right? Your number of 6,000, right? So that's kind of different.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the difference in the numbers.
Okay.
But it's
Okay,
amazingly
that's
large.
It doesn't
difference.
include the mechanicals, I mean,
Okay.
we had some of that equipment there. We haven't gone over the storage stuff. We've always had less storage. We've talked about potentially moving, if we could, some of the storage areas over to the equipment.
Are there missing functions on here that you're not, like you just mentioned mechanical, is that?
Is that on there? Well, on the temporary terminal, I didn't put that in, I don't think.
That
But
would
on
be
the
the
other ones,
machine room.
on the other ones I did.
I see.
Okay, I put it on the other ones, but I didn't put
Against
it
the
on,
bottom section.
I didn't put it on the temporary. Okay. All right, so,
That's why our numbers don't add up. I was wondering about that too, because I'm coming up with close to 10,000 square feet for the square space, usable square space of the building versus your number of 6,900. That's all I have to-
These are not online.
okay, so what we did, and these are the pages from the E&M.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Eric. Thank you
Yes.
for coming.
Want some renderings for the road? I get renderings. Plenty of renderings.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay. So this is what transpired in 2013 and 2014. And this describes what happened during that time period. And it was written around 2015, so it was closer to time. We did the feasibility, we started the feasibility study in 2013, I believe. We worked internally, we developed the program needs, and the contract, which is the standard DCAM contract, pretty much used, required the architects, the design team, to come up with 3 alternative concepts as best they could to meet the program needs. And they came up with concepts A, B, and C, which are described here, and we presented those at a community meeting on November 12th. And
Steve, may I interrupt? Are there minutes? These are details, but to me they're important. Are there minutes of that meeting? How was that meeting advertised?
well, I don't know how it was, I've forgotten how it was advertised, but it was well advertised because the entire room was filled.
The community room was full.
The community room was filled.
Well, this is the community hall.
Yeah.
I mean, to call this, to me, this sounds, this does not sound like a community meeting if you didn't publicize it in the newspaper.
We probably did, I just don't remember.
You did. Okay, well.
I mean, I don't remember one way or the
then
other.
we'll go with-
It was, people showed up, everyone seemed
Well,
to
I
know
can
about
throw, free beer and people will show up. That doesn't.
Okay,
These are-
we should have advertised that then? No.
We did not give up here.
We did not give up beer, but,
Well, I would just question your use of when you
my memory,
characterize this as a public meeting. To me, that you're not meeting a certain bar. That
I was not aware of
One
any
would expect.
issue of
Public
inadequate
presentation.
advertising at that time.
okay.
Okay. It was a public presentation. We also had a separate board meeting where we made the same presentation and people showed up at that. That was obviously advertised at that point. But this one was billed as a community meeting and it was well attended. That's all I can tell you. And we went through, and Chris Iwerks did the presentation. He went through the 3 proposals. Concept A was trying to keep everything as close to the ground as possible. There were a lot of issues with that operationally, lots of vehicle and pedestrian conflicts. Didn't meet all of our program needs. B was a partial elevated terminal building on fill, and it with pedestrian walkways, I think, elevated pedestrian walkways to the slips, which helped separate the pedestrians and the vehicles. And that still didn't meet all of our needs and everything else. And concept C was the deck concept, where you just put a deck over the back area of the terminal site. You put the vehicle staging, the car vehicle staging under that. You put the terminal building on top of that. And that's the only one that, according to their plan, met all of the program needs, including the requisite public parking spaces for the community and things everyone wanted. It satisfied everything.
Covered walkways.
Covered walkways. I dare say, I think it's fair to say that no one in the community liked that in the strongest terms. I mean, everyone expressed their opposition. And it was, I think he did the cost estimates for that. It was like, concept A was $10 million less than concept B, and concept B was $10 million less than concept C. So from a functional point of view, from a long-term good value, concept C was operationally, you could justify it to go in that direction. Everything we've done since then has been, in my opinion, to respond to the community's concerns about all the aspects of what that terminal would do to the community. And we've tried our best during that time. After that meeting, Catherine, I think, approached us. I mean, we may have approached her, but I think she said, please work with the community to try to address and mitigate the concerns we have about the landside aspect of the terminal. And we did. We met with Catherine, Steve Junker, Beth Colt, and Kevin Murphy. They were the representatives of the business community for many times over the course of the following 7 months. And what?
About 9 months.
No, it was November to June. We finished in June of 2014. So that's
8 months.
okay. And they said, what about, we said, okay, let's do away with the elevated pedestrian walkways. They gave us their list of concerns. The list of concerns are in the E&F that we filed. We tried to address them as best we could. That's what we were trying to do. We increased the access to the bike path, down to the park. We created a park down there. Our original proposal would not have had a bike park down there. I mean, so we extended the bike path all the way down to the water. And we tried to situate, because the water views from Woods Hole Road, I think, particularly from Woods Hole Road and the library, were of importance, stated importance. That's on page 21 or 72 of 172, would block the view of the ocean. We worked, and we kept on sending the architects back to try to come up with different locations.
Where we?
Page 72 of 172.
Okay.
Okay. These are the ones that they came down. And, that's, number one was the principal reason we went over so many different locations for the building. And each of the, concepts of permanently altered entrance, which currently has an expansive view of the water. Size was too big, the footprint that we were originally proposing was far bigger than the one we now have. Far bigger.
Footprint of?
The building we were originally proposing was far bigger than what we now have.
But you told us that because it was a single story, or?
No, if you look at page 70,
Story.
if you look at page 70, that was the building that was proposed to
Well,
be.
the feasibility study does include text about single stories. I don't know if it was quickly rejected, but I do believe there's
Right. I think page 70,
Okay.
concept C, may have been a single-story building, but I think the base elevation of the first floor was 25 feet. Yeah, it was, I mean, I'm not sure about the footage, but it was gonna be high up because it was above the deck.
It was on the deck.
But we were gonna keep it as a single, we may have, I'm not sure,
Floor.
but we may have. And that was the context of the single-story building. But a single still, okay. So size, connection, we had the plaza in there in order to, all of these things were done. We went through all of these different concepts. And then after we, they would say, come back, can you explore this? Can you explore that? And we did. And what we also did, Catherine had taken, I gave these. Catherine had taken a photograph, and I don't have the original photograph, I'm sure you must have it somewhere, from this location, on Woods Hole Road. And she said, that's the view we have, and how is it going to affect that view? And so Chris would go back, and for each concept, he would go back and say, and this is how this terminal building would affect the view this way. This is our estimate, our projection based upon what they had. And actually, I think fairly, it turned out to be rather accurate. Yeah. I mean, so it's not as if, I don't think we made a mistake. I mean, now we don't have that roof line that he put in there, but everyone understood and we agreed that was just a placeholder at the time, that the architectural design of the building was not being considered at that point, and that was still on the table for discussion with the community, with everyone else. That was something down the road. We were just looking at our functional needs.
So the height was also negotiable?
Not the height. We were saying it's a two-story building. Well, no, if it were a one-story building, it would be reflected, but the renderings he did were of the two-story building, I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
let's see, with all respect,
At the end of the feasibility study.
A2 is a single-level terminal, I don't know what that means, but
What? At the end of the feasibility study, the conclusion is it's going to be a two-story
Right.
building.
I'm sorry. Which one are you looking at?
I'm reading the title, A2, concept A2, single-level,
I'm sorry, that's not about the
terminal.
building. Single level means the site itself.
I see, yes, but what about the word single-level terminal that follows it?
That would be a single, you're right, that should be a single level building.
Well, I'm just saying, it was considered, huh?
Okay. Yes, it was put out there. And the difference is that if you have a single level building, a one-story building, it takes up a larger footprint, it impacts our operations, and it also potentially impacts the view. So if you look at the renderings A1, I think were for the original concept A. And all of these were shown at the community meeting, not in November, because but we had another community meeting in April, in which the progress we've made, the ones that are labeled April are the ones that were shown then.
How is that? I'm not aware of that. Could you describe that meeting?
We had 3 large community meetings at the Woods Hole Community Center during the course of the feasibility study.
One in November.
November 12, 2013, I think it was. And then another one, April, I forgot, April of 2014. The date is in my email to you, I think earlier this week or last week. You asked the question.
That was the earlier slides, okay. So there was actually a meeting then, okay.
Right, it was a presentation that we made to the community. And then the last one was June 9th, 2014.
As long as we're on meetings, we can take a minute.
Yep.
Would any of these meetings, in your view, be characterized as public scoping meetings, or were they presentational?
We answered questions, we had discussions, we made presentations. I don't know, they were
How much of
public participation meetings.
in
I mean, it's
input, are there minutes of these meetings?
no minutes.
Were they
No, we
were
didn't.
audio tape, videotape?
I think members of the community may have taped them. In fact, my memory is that they did. And someone may have given me an audio tape. I'm just telling you what I remember. I have never listened to it because I was there. And I really didn't want to relive
How did
the
you
experience.
how did you know what input you were receiving from participants to put into the next day to remember and then transfer to
It
the,
was a combination.
so there were notes?
No,
Yeah.
notes, that handwritten notes
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
the staff.
yeah, Bob gave me his notes from the November meeting. Other people took notes, I think, but I can't, remember, this is 4.5 years ago, so, no, but I remember Bob took extensive notes. We had a joke at that time with, note takers, because we were doing labor negotiations too. And we actually, we remembered,
So that way we could follow up on.
yeah, we remembered.
And the input shaped the outcome of what you went on to propose.
I will say this, absolutely. The input there and the public process, we had, you can call them, the community working group that we did, that Catherine started after that, in response to what the community outcry was. We went through for 8 months, or however number of months. We had a number of meetings, I can't count them all. We went through, Wayne came in and said, I heard the community loud and clear. Bill was at the meeting. You were at most, if not all of the meetings. So, Wayne came in at the first meeting and said, we heard the community loud and clear. He said, I will do away with the elevated pedestrian walkways. I think is what he said at the beginning. And let's talk about that, And then we worked on everything else. And it was, Catherine Norton was at a number of these meetings, not all of them, maybe all of them.
First one was Bob Marshall.
No.
Yeah.
No, the community
was.
center
no,
was
no.
Bob Marshall.
I'm talking the working group.
Okay.
I'm talking the working group meetings.
First and last, yes.
Yes, okay. And we worked, and, we did our best. We thought what we were doing was what worked into a solution. And we had Chris create these renderings. So if you look at the first one, concept A1, that coincides with the one of 67 of 172 on the ENF. And that was what the view would have been blocked by that concept, which people didn't like.
A1,
A1.
although that would appear to me to be the least blocked, but okay.
I can say at that time, no one liked the view block. The focus of which aspect of the view was exactly the opposite.
Yeah, the focus was looking down Route 2,
They
From the
wanted-
library.
They wanted us
from
to
the library.
And then this one was concept A2, which was 74 of 172. And that's because it was so close to the road, even though it's only one floor, the roof line, it brings it up and that blocked the view there. No one liked that. So we kept on moving the building around and we did. We kept on, and it cost us a lot of money, but it was worth it. Concept A3 was A3. That was a view that would have been blocked by A3, and that was a 2-level. Oh, and the thing about A3, what Chris was showing here is that you have a 1-story building with a pitched roof, because, there are big arguments against a flat roof in this environment of a building that size, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, there are lots of problems with it. So you're going to have a pitch roof of some type of pitch, and a pitch roof over a 1-story building blocks about the same height of view as a 2-story building with dormers. And he was, either intentionally or it just came out, people got the idea that, yes, if you have a 2-story building, so you're able to, it's not going to block any more of the view in height, and it can reduce the footprint. So you get more of a view around the building as opposed to a 1-story building which you spread out all the functions. That was a large part of the discussion. Concept A3 was, we just talked about. Concept B1 was the original B proposal.
Is this a 10-pitch roof?
Pardon?
Is this a 10-pitch roof?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Doug, what,
At this point,
what's the pitch of that roof approximately on concept A? It looks like.
Either 10 or 12.
10 or
45 degrees.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was like
I mean, this is,
What's the pitch of the terminal in Vineyard Haven? Just so I,
I have no idea.
okay. Doug, do you have any idea you've been to, seen the terminal in Vineyard Haven, right?
I have,
Seems
but I
like
didn't
it's
pay
a
enough
much,
attention to really say.
but
it's a 10 or a 12.
it is.
It
It
is.
says pitched as this, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
It's a wood shingle roof.
Yeah, I know that, but
It's
I
gotta be-
had a vision that it was a shallower pitch.
No.
It's just a
But
smaller
maybe
building.
not.
A little bit modular too, it's not a.
The dormers, the outcroppings are not as pitched, but if you look at the main building, it's at least a 10 or a 12.
At least.
Okay. I'm not a builder, I don't know, I just don't know these terms. So
That's why I defer to
okay,
Doug.
all right,
I'm not either.
okay. So B1 was, I assume, the original B, that's on page 68. And that was where it's on a rise but not on a deck. And that would have been, okay. Concept B2 is page 76. We went through all of these. And every time, you know, he would have to go through, Chris would have to go through the site plan, look at the turning radiuses, see if it were, you know, do the best he could in terms of that. And then he'd come back and say, well, this either works for this reason or it doesn't work for that reason, this is a view. And I tried to put that in the ENF because I was, you know, involved in drafting the ENF and the consequences of each of those. So B3 was there, what B3 would look like. And then that's the last titled rendering, because that's what we presented at the April public meeting. And
What are the last two images on here then? Okay.
I'll have to get to that. I'm not trying to, and April, we thought we had done, by B3, we thought that was the best we could do. We really did. And so we were going to go and say, sorry, the community presentation, people weren't that happy, but no one was making any suggestions that we thought would be, could work. So the next one, I believe, is B3.1, because that fits with the presentation, because we talked about, we had a site plan of B3.1. And that was where we were going to go to the board.
B3.1.
And then the last one,
Were you considering pitched roofs in any of these?
oh,
A one-story pitched?
yeah, we were showing that the one-story pitched roof would be the same height as a two-story pitched roof with dormers.
Simply because of the pitch of the roof?
Yeah, the pitch of the roof. For the most part. You could try to lower it, but you can't lower it significantly on a building this size. And so the last one is the rendering of the last page, the site layout plan.
So the last one represents C.
Nope, page 88. What we went with.
Page 80.
Site layout 88.
You're going to get the concept E soon.
That is E.
That is E. The last page is E.
The final version of the E version that we did. We did a number of E versions to try to turn the building 90 degrees. You can see all of those there, put them on every location, and none of those worked. They just didn't work. We tried.
So,
The only thing he didn't try, I wanted a triangle building, but he said triangles really don't work well on buildings. I don't know, I mean, but he did agree to the triangle to be, we were hoping that E4, that by doing the bus lanes on a slant, that would help, but it didn't help.
And just to review, E was presented at the community hall on June 9th.
And that's when everyone liked it.
The newspaper article suggests otherwise.
Well, Catherine was, you know, I am part of a neighborhood association too, and whenever we get a proposal, we never endorse a proposal, we just don't object.
I'm not talking about the community association. The newspaper reported that there was laughter in the audience.
At my joke, I said, because I pointed out that when you come to it, and you come to the site, the consensus solution, we spent all of this time, we spent all this money going through all these different proposals.
I saw the quote, yeah.
And
Same as you had before.
And it comes out that it's so close to the original Woods Hole Terminal building, all you do is you turn it around 90 degrees. And I said, obviously someone was doing right back in the 1950s or whenever they had it, and this, maybe if we had just done that from the beginning, we could have saved a lot of time. That was the sense, that's what I was done. But the headline spoke, approval, approved.
Well, the last headline in the paper said you're going back to the drawing board with this project, so let's forget about the headlines, right?
Okay.
Don't believe the headlines.
I'm not.
Now, this meeting there were how many attendees from the public?
Almost the same as the first meeting, I think. How many does the community hold? Anywhere from 50 to 100?
Well, the newspaper reported 30, and I assume there were a few staff, so less than 30. How was that advertised? I mean, you made significant changes during the course of 8 months, and your approval comes from 20...
I don't remember how they were advertised. I believe they probably were. They may have been. I'll go with what Bob said. There wasn't any issue raised in any way that they were not adequately advertised, is all I can tell you.
Wait, so you didn't get complaints, therefore you were good? I mean, if I meet in my basement, I won't get complaints.
I mean, well, no one said when the newspaper articles appeared, oh, I didn't know about the meeting, or no one came to us afterwards. I think my memory is that we advertised it. We let people know that we were having them. It was a public process.
In the paper?
I'll check.
Well, to me, I mean, to be brutally honest, this, for me, does not pass the sniff test of a public meeting.
It certainly does for me, because
Okay.
I know that the public participated widely in that. It does to me.
And how?
In both the business community and the community association, there was no other groups that expressed an interest in participating in the negotiations that went on for 8 months.
And everyone was there from the public.
But what procedure was followed to let, I mean, how would they have been invited? How could other interested?
I'll find out how we did it. I mean, that's a matter of whatever it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Bill or Susie or Axel.
No, I didn't know it.
I wasn't there.
No, I didn't know they were.
I was aware that there was a process going on, but I was mostly out of town at that
Yeah,
time
that's
and
right.
couldn't participate.
And
I went to the 2013 one, but I didn't know about the next two.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it's surprising, amazing that these meetings may or may not have been taped, they may or may not have been advertised. I mean, when developers, towns are proposing projects, there's a procedure of some sort for informing the public and soliciting feedback. I mean,
I thought it at the time, and I still think we did very well in getting a good amount of public participation. We were complimented, I think, by at least one fellow selectman on how well we did. I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, but no, and it wasn't Doug. I think it was about
Steve, this was also brought up at the board meetings too,
We also had public meetings and all of that too.
which was advertised as well.
probably not in Woods Hole, I'm guessing, if it's June, but in fact, I think that was the Nantucket meeting. All right, I'm just going to, I mean, that's
Well, it is
my evaluation
interesting
on it.
in light of how the Woods Hole community, how opposed to the whole McDonald's thing. I mean, it's a very vocal, outspoken community, and it's proven that the petition response, a lot of that is a Woods Hole response, not all, but, that came out very strongly in opposition. So it is, I mean, it is surprising there wouldn't have been more participation and outreach.
There was no outreach on the vineyard at all, or they could have, except for the board meetings, I guess.
No, there was some participation on the vineyard. Steve made a 3-hour presentation.
You talk about our burglar.
At the high school.
And the high, yeah,
About the whole terminal reconstruction project?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Design-wise, could I ask, did you follow up in any way, having a more classical Cape Cod-like house? Because that's, I know a lot of people in the survey that you had were very concerned about having a modern building with glass and stone versus having Cape Cod.
That's another subject of this discussion. I don't know whether
Right,
you have
and
time.
that's sort of a big disconnect, I think,
Would you mind if we?
with these renderings.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Okay. No, there has been a lot of concern, and we have been meeting with representatives from the Woods Hole Community Association about that. And
In part because we were asked to by,
because the Senator DiMacedo and Representative Fernandez asked us to meet with them. Yeah.
I think he also asked to meet with the regular community.
Right.
Well, he actually singled, yeah, and our plan is to do
There were
that.
three players,
But, you know, we're
community
meeting,
association, business, and the public.
right, no, I think he said the Historical Commission, but that's all right. I mean,
Well, I think
we aren't gonna not meet with anybody. We are, you
Okay,
know,
well,
and, you know, this is, we've had some other things on our plate over the course of the last few months too. So you have to understand, our failure to respond immediately or as promptly as people want is not because we aren't taking these things seriously. We just have a lot of things going on and we have a lot to do. And the HMS report, you know, was the first one, independent. Clearly, no one doesn't believe it was independent given what it said. But one of the things it says is that everyone in this organization is under a lot of, and so that's the only thing. And we're just moving as best we can. And so we began the discussions with them because those are the ones that were identified by the senator and the representative. The Business Association, my feeling from our initial meeting is that, except for the food concession area, they actually like the design. And they feel, you know, they like the idea of the pedestrian plaza to the north. It opens up stuff. It has a lot of bicyclists who use the bicycle path coming down, being able to congregate there, use the restrooms, go around. Right after the public presentation, our architects, based upon what they, you know, the reaction there, they went back themselves without any indication and started to look at how they could revise the design that they're doing. Ironically, and I'm just saying this just, you know, they used this salt box design because they felt, and I don't know anything about this, okay, you can disagree, they felt the salt box design could be used to cover a building of this size, you know, which was 50 feet wide, which is the important thing, I guess, with the lowest amount of roof line. That if you had a normal pitched roof, that it would go up much higher, that the salt box, you could come down and then put dormers in it. They did it in an attempt to keep the building as low as possible and to make it efficient because you have a nice big building there and you can do it. They put in a lot of windows because they think people want windows. They're going to be environmentally, you know, they're going to be whatever thermal, so that they have all the
all the energy code requirements.
Right, they meet all the, you know, hurricane stuff. Because of the feedback about the amount of windows, they are, you know, they went back and they took out a lot of the windows to make it look, you know, fundamentally less like a ski chalet at Vail and keeping in mind. But they felt the salt box design was a legitimate, simple and part of Cape Cod style. During our entire discussion in 2013 and 2014, we never once, I don't believe, talked about the architectural design of the terminal building. We didn't ask the community to accept a design. We didn't present a design. As far as we, you know, the purpose of that presentation was to present it to the community to start the discussion. That, you know, and we started it. We started the discussion. We're having the discussion with this whole community of representatives you talked about. We belatedly got back. You know, we want to have a discussion with the Falmouth Historical Commission about it. We were hoping, as we talked about, after having some sense of how people feel about it, to have more public participation and workshops, things along that line. Because we have to have a building there, no matter how technology savvy we might become.
No,
And
there has to be a building
there has to
there.
be a building there. And so if we aren't doing anybody any favors to be, just do it, we want to try our best. With the design, we can go over the bucket truck. I don't know whether you're aware.
Yeah.
At the first, Woods Hole community, they said, well, is it really going to, well, you said at the meeting, we didn't know that the one-story building was going to block the view anyway.
Well, I didn't know, maybe others know.
Okay. And so we went, well, the only way to do that is actually to do a test. We said, we have a bucket truck, let's go and measure it. And Bill was there and Bob was there. I was luckily away on vacation.
Yep, several of us were there.
Yeah.
You were there? Yeah. And it appears to me that a one-story building with any pitch of a roof will block the water from wherever it is located.
Even if
That's relative, though, isn't it? I mean, how much water are you talking? I mean,
The entire water sheet.
so you wouldn't be able to see the.
But you can adjust the pitch of the roof.
You can't adjust the pitch, but
Yeah.
even a
It's still
flat
gonna
roof.
block the view.
But
No
even
matter
a-
what you have there, it's gonna
right,
block.
but
Steve,
even
you'll share the measurements with us at some point,
Yeah.
right? Or
Do you wanna
either
do it?
digitally or,
Can I just,
I'd
I
rather
mean,
do it now.
I can do it right away, but it makes you ask the questions that we've been asking. If even a one-story building with any type of a pitch on a roof is going to block the entire water sheet, which I think it does, then are we better off going up taller? So you increase the amount of water that you can see to the side of the building? Or do you, there's an argument for doing that.
It's a good choice.
It's
Pardon?
not really
It's a good
tall,
choice.
you're just
Okay.
using that top space.
Right. So, and the Woods Hole Community Association reps, are precariously, because they don't know if anyone's going to agree with them. They're open to the idea. In fact, they had a little discussion, like, and they were, one said, well, we want it one story, and the other one said, but you're going to block more of the views. And then Catherine said, well, by the end of this, I'm going to want a tower. It's just, and so essentially, we're looking at having a 2.5-story tower. Unfortunately, it's called that, which can hold as much of the functions up and down, and then you decrease the amount of space you need. And then they also want traditional Woods Hole styles. And they have proposed, if we look at the roof line of the Woods Hole Community Center, and if we're going to need somewhat of a, I wish Eric and David were still here because we had those, and I hope I'm not saying too much, but it's all my fault if they do. We're if you're going to have more of a two-story, if you can use an L, same that appeared on Sam Cahoon's fish market. We haven't, that's as far as we've gotten. That's, and so, but
Steve,
they're interesting
I'm
suggestions.
really impressed with that you take the space requirements that you have here, and you've moved it all around, and you've done really good diligence with these alternatives. And I personally don't have a problem with your conceptual alternative planning with, these A, B, and C designs. I think you did the best you could with your going-in assumptions. But where I was trying to go with my earlier rant was questioning the going-in assumptions.
Right.
Can we move some of the waiting area that we need in the summer off-site? Can we move some of the ticketing functions off-site? Can we use technology instead of real estate in various cases. So I don't have a problem at the level that you're talking about. I think you've done everything you could possibly do with your going-in assumptions, but I would really, you know, I wasn't here, and maybe it's too late, I don't know, but if it were possible to revisit the going-in assumptions, the fact that we need, you know, to accommodate 300 people or 350 or whatever, the fact that we need 5 windows, the fact that we need such a big building, you know, I'm looking at this place and I see there's lots of square foot over, you know, that's a whole nother room. How often does it get used? I don't know. I mean, I'm not, hang on, I don't mean to criticize this. I'm just saying that we really ought to rethink what we need, how bad we need it, for how many days we need it, and where we need it, and sort of go back to basics. Now, it's probably too late for that, but I have to say, given what you've done with what you had, I'm impressed.
Okay. And I acknowledge we have that disagreement about that. But we did consider agonizingly what we felt our space needs were, based upon what the future was going to hold. And we do think that we've been making responsible decisions for that, and not at the expense, I mean...
Well, I know you're seeing the future as more growth, more people, more traffic, and I'm seeing the future as better technology, more efficient routing, automated ship loading and planning and balancing, and you know, a way where you can we have technology that we didn't have in 2013, where we can in real time know what the traffic is, because everybody with an Android in a car sends their data to Google, and Google knows what the traffic is on a second-by-second basis. And so we can say with plus or minus 60-second certainty how long it's going to take to get from Gifford Street to the Steamship Authority, and we can also say for 90%, 95% of the cars, they've all got someone in there with the cell phone, and you can drive down and drive right onto the boat. And,
but you can't. You can't drive right onto the boat. You can't do that.
But you're talking about more for passengers.
You can't drive like that. All the cars.
In the very near future, technology is going, and with some imagination and possibly some technology development, it's going to be possible. I accept that right now, today, you probably can't. But in 3 years, in 5 years, I mean, you look what happened. In 2013, we didn't even have real-time traffic on Google Maps. I don't even know if Google Maps existed in 2013. But now it does, and it provides exceptionally good. It provides a whole nother level of logistical accuracy that we did not have, that could be used in place of real estate.
We have discussed this, and I know Bob has to go soon, so I want to, may I, go ahead.
Oh, this is quick. People are asking, and including in our group, the last question on page 4, have physical changes already been made to the Woods Hole terminal that preclude a change to the final placement of the building? But what is the answer to that?
First of all, I don't think there is another place at the terminal for the building if we're going to operate in any way as a terminal. I mean, Bill mentioned that before. What we had done, and what, with all the traffic flow problems, with the trucks, with the cars, with the people, with what we need in front of the slips, with how far the slips are going to be, with the amount of staging we need and everything else. As Chris Iwerks once said, that place was the only place left for the building. That was the only place that we could carve out pretty much. So that's number one. We could go through it, but we have, I think, when you read this, we have considered a lot of other places, and we couldn't do it at the other places, because they just don't work.
Is that a yes or no? Have physical changes already been made that would?
I'm giving, what we have done is the design of we got all the permits, we got, the stormwater stuff, all the things based upon the current footprint of the building and plaza.
The location or the footprint? The
footprint, the location.
The location.
Same thing, the current footprint at that location. So all the permitting is done with that. If anything were changed materially, I don't know about, insignificantly, we would have to go in and either get amendments, do something along that line, and we'd have to make significant changes to the plans, especially the stormwater management plans. That would be, as I've been told, a major change to everything. Okay?
Okay. Well, to me, as you've told the story in a lot of detail, I guess the tragedy is that there were moments when it appears 1, 2, or 3 people weighed in and had a very large impact on the project, including especially the notion that the distance is too far, and therefore we reject concept A1, which, by the way, and I speak with a lot of people about this, it's actually the most favorable, at least criticized of the locations.
Actually, you're talking B3.1.
Talking about A1, well, at least the building, exactly where that railway station is. Actually, people like that. You might mention that to the architect too. So to me, just for the record, I mean, it's tragic that there was not more of a public process, because I don't think 2 or 3 individuals weighing in about distances to which most of us are used to, and which golf carts can easily overcome, and which are not hundreds of passengers a day who can't do the walking.
What do you think about the length from Oak Bluffs from the terminal out to the boats?
Well, apparently that was the reason that Mr. Hanover weighed in so forcefully.
Mark did and Kathy did too. There are 2 board members.
Were there other?
That's too far a walk.
That's too far a walk. And Kathy had had a disability, and she was talking out of personal experience. And we take those things seriously. Also, it's one thing to be able to take them in golf carts at the Oak Bluffs terminal. It's another thing when you have a nice area that you can actually go. It's another thing to take people in golf carts with what the Woods Hole terminal is, which was a very different facility with a lot more traffic that's going every which way than you get at Oak Bluffs.
Sounds like an extra reason for a golf cart, but all right.
Well,
okay.
Can I? Yep. Yeah. Are we somewhat?
Yeah. I was hoping we get to 12 at some
Well,
time.
what I wanted to propose, and maybe we do not, because I think time is probably today is running out. Right? It feels as though everybody's worked a lot of detail, maybe, and brains are not ready to move. And so I'm responsible for 12. And so maybe if I could just say a word and see if one might put it on a future agenda, if today is long enough.
Question 12.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we were just about to move on to that.
And I'll tell you why. Just in summary, as maybe a setting, which we've already talked about when we first met, and I asked you what your vision was for the next 50 to 100 years. Didn't have one.
At least we're frank.
Which I understand. But I want,
HMS confirmed that.
So this is what 12 is about. And I'll tell you why maybe if you'd like to meet again. By now, since we've met, we have been all over the place. We attend all the Bridge Canal meetings, board meetings.
I've seen you there, yeah.
We spent time with Mayor Mitchell and Cabral and with everybody to try to get a vision for regional transportation from Providence to Boston, everything south, including both islands. To try to get a sense of what the future is going to look like and how communities are going to operate and how people are going to live. and get around, and including a lot of things that have not come up and are not in this formula today about what is time sensitive and what is not. If one stands on Watson Corner down here and watches granite going by on trucks to the ferry, you say, you know, what is this? Particularly if you're having to get out of the way of the trucks. It's quite a scene, and everyone's probably stood down there, as I have, and stood up on the bridge. So there's a South Coast Rail. There's all these little operations operating in sort of independent silos. So you need to come to that canal meeting and so on. And given the fact that, in fact, we probably conceptually are in different places, you have been very clear that you see your role and your mission as supporting the vineyard economy, and others read the Enabling Act and have a different notion about what a lifeline is, and so we come at it from different places, or much of the community comes at it from different places, from a different perspective. But there are interesting things afloat. For example, we have been in touch with a lot with truckers and fuel carriers and all that sort of stuff, right? And this is just one example of why I think the conversation would be good at a future date. About 95% of the fuel comes from Rhode Island. And many truckers want to know why they're driving past New Bedford, you know, with this leading obviously into the question of off-Cape ports in the face of what you're doing down here. The bridges are not going to get wider, not in the foreseeable future. Bridges are going to be quite what they are for quite a long while, meaning 40 years. The bridges are not, nothing's going to happen to the bridges. And so the system is fairly fragile. The roads are fragile. In fact, your terminal and your boats are fragile. Accidents are pretty easy, right? Ship comes in, hits the dock, and you can close the terminal down pretty quickly. A lot of things, fires. And the Corps of Engineers raised the question, and so our question is about the entire region and other communities and what they're living with. And Corps of Engineers are concerned about bridge closures. In fact, when we last met with Senator DiMacia, we said, how's natural gas get under the Cape? He said, I don't know, but I'll find out. So I got hold of the Corps of Engineers, and I did find out. There's a 12-inch main hanging under each bridge. Kind of interesting. And so we have hazmats, volatile hydrocarbons going over the bridge, and gas mains hanging under the bridge, and obviously fuel going underneath. It's an interesting confluence of a variety of possible accidents, and the bridges have also been questioned as targets for intentional closure. So, who knows? But people are blowing things up in this day and age. Who knows if someone's going to close the bridges intentionally? They might. So we have a three-island scenario. A disaster response three-island scenario. And so that's one question. And the other is where the islands are going. You know, are the islands thinking? We're trying to talk with them about, are they thinking toward electrifying? So the day will come when they move electrons and not liquid hydrocarbons. It's not far-fetched. They're building wind farms a little south. So are they starting to move their heads in that direction? And are the islands starting to change? You know, you remember the cultural animosity that occurred over the years between Nantucket and New Bedford and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, South Coast Rail, looks like it's going to stand there. Yeah. And so then one does imagine a high-speed ferry to New Bedford and the rail as a communication hub. I mean, that's what we talked about with a lot of the folks, the redevelopment folks over there, and with the mayor. So the question comes to, how does the Steamship Authority fit into all this regional thinking and the future? can one, as demand increases, are we going to keep pumping fuel into trucks from Rhode Island and Warwick and driving them on this crazy route over the bridges, down, or bring the barge, instead of stopping at Warwick, is the island going to sort of get a message that maybe the fuel supply ought to go right straight there, even as an interim measure? Maybe they need to put a little offshore, a little terminal off the island. Anyway, there's all kinds of thinking, right?
And I think we've already addressed part of that, because back a few years ago, Betsy Bedfelder and Maura Tierney asked the staff to look into the feasibility of freight transportation between New Bedford and Martha's Vineyard. And Betsy's attitude was that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Matter of what?
Of when.
When.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's a matter of when.
Okay. And we looked at that, and I think, we don't have a planner position, but we spent a lot of our time looking at that. And we actually came up with, people may disagree with some of the elements, but we came up with our vision of what a freight transportation system, ferry transportation, would be between New Bedford and Martha's Vineyard. Nat tried to have us make an argument for it. We said, no, we're assuming there is enough business for it. We're just making that assumption. If it's going to be provided, how should it be provided? We're the operations people. This is how we think the system should be going. And we're assuming that there are enough customers holding fuel past New Bedford, other people on the South Coast who would take it if it were appropriately done. Our ideal is that it be a private operator. We even got Craig Johnson to come in and look and see. He thinks that he could get a private operator to do it. It could actually make money on its own. We made commitments about we could help by using our reservation system, because we think that's an integral part of the system, being able, they may not be able to go from New Bedford and come back to New Bedford. They may want to come back through Woods Hole, so you make it as flexible as you can be. Also using our terminal, because there aren't any other terminals there. But the one thing we said is we don't have a terminal in New Bedford.
Yes,
and that's,
I understand that.
And this is a regional transportation issue.
Yes.
Not just a steamship issue.
Correct.
And while we're willing, and we put it on the paper, what we're willing to do, and we have to do it because we're also looking out for the interest of the islands in this. And because we pointed out that they are the only ones who pay for the entire cost of their transportation in the state, if not the country. And so we have to make it in a financial system that we think is fine with them. And our Martha's Vineyard board member also is fine with our analysis on this too. So we got something where we think we would have critical mass. It wouldn't be like FDR telling Eleanor, what's the point in moving forward on civil rights if I look over the shoulder and no one's following us? We think we presented a framework, but we need people to come in and say, yes, let's work on this together. And we thank you for your starting that initiative. And of course, we want more meetings on this because this is a much larger subject.
It's
than
a larger topic.
But we've expressed what we think our role would be. We expressed our willingness to participate in that role. But it's a larger issue that has to be addressed by a number of different people. If rail comes into, I know that New Bedford at some point thought we should be north of the bridge. There are some operational issues with that.
Yes, they're up to north.
But we're just saying, we're just identifying them.
Yeah.
That's all.
But I guess what I'm asking is if you're willing to be part of even a more regional public conversation about it, rather than
We even proposed that in our plan.
Okay.
We even proposed that. We asked for everyone and be part of a regional transportation and be part of that. And we kept, and this is where we sent our report to every single public official we could think of, and it went over, a thud.
It does. But just so we're, I just wanted to leave the conversation sort of letting you know that that's our major interest. Right. And we're pushing on with trying to get the region to think about
right. And we applaud
everything.
We applaud you on that.
Electrifying the island to getting trucks off the road and not carrying them on this crazy route and just having, right, service come right to the.
And you,
Yeah,
as a result, you probably know better than anyone how much time it takes.
Oh, my God. Me too.
I know. I mean,
Gathering the information, we spend days and days
Right.
and days and days, and it takes over your life, kind of interestingly. And, but you gather information. I have a lot of things, a lot of interest on everyone, from Peter Noonan's position to Cape Cod trucking. We've met with endless numbers of people at all levels, from legislative levels to right on the ground, who say, oh my God, I would love to just stop at New Bedford. I don't want to drag my trucks. Anyway, so there we go.
So I think your premise here about spending time and energy and resources, we have been doing that, so it's not that
I understand.
we're, you know, and
But I just wanted
whether it's hiring
take down some of the
Craig, or
barriers.
whether it's, you know,
Just make sure we're removing barriers and can keep that conversation going, because we are on that larger.
We try, for instance, we have the Cape Flyer, the train that comes down,
Yes.
and we go over the bridge with our buses
Yes.
every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and participate in that.
Just so you know, anyway,
These are the,
so we're all going the same direction.
you've got,
I have whole copies which have every page.
are they huge, Steve, electronically, or are they?
I can give to you electronically.
Okay.
I figure very few people have,
What is it?
it's the view.
Actually, if we could leave one in the library, we'll tell, I think that'd be useful.
Yeah.
Maybe two, yeah. So why don't I?
You just did.
So with the square footage in the area at such a premium, have you decided to make use of that second floor cathedral that was the previous lobby?
We have asked,
More copies, yeah.
yeah, these are full ones, and these are, I selected pages out of these, but I can give it to Nat electronically, and so you can see what pages I left out. We have asked the architects to look into what the Woods Hole Community Association representatives have suggested as a possible alternative. The idea is that if we want the lobby to have a ceiling higher than usual, because for a room that has a lot of people congregate in it, you need to have some higher ceiling than just a normal ceiling in here. It doesn't make, it's not good for anyone. But whether that can be situated in a way that's better situated than having a whole two-story one the way that the presentation was, because a lot of people felt that was a lot of wasted space up there, and maybe difficult to maintain too, but that's his problem, not mine.
It's his problem.
So, but my problem is his problem, or his problem is my problem. So we're looking into that, and the idea is that if you stack up stuff, you might put the mechanicals and stuff on the third floor. You can put the locker room on the second floor. If you leave the first floor only for the things that you need on the first floor,
the public areas.
public areas, and if you're going to block the view anyway, then the more you put above. And the only thing we really have on the first floor that may not be there are the locker rooms and the employee restroom. So, I mean, it's not, but that's what we're trying to do. It may reduce it from 120, I think they already got it down to 113 potentially using that model, and we're seeing if we can do it. And this is a bucket truck. This is, I don't know how many. Here, there's some. You want a bucket truck? Okay. I'll give that to you.
I looked at this, I didn't really understand it, and there were a couple where there was a shadow.
Right. In my opinion, it shows that what Chris prepared for us in 2014 is pretty accurate. And ironically, you can take, a lot of the buildings, the view of the building is going to be blocked a lot of the time by the trees. When you're looking down Woods Hole Road. Granted, the worst place to look at the terminal is Crane Street Bridge, but that's not, in my experience, that's not where the majority of Woods Hole residents look at. They come down Woods Hole Road and go to the village, and I have that same sensation as everyone else has when I've taken the bus so many times. You come in and you have that view. But most everyone goes down Water Street.
What can we report back to Pie in the Sky? client base,
What?
pie in the sky customers, what can they expect?
Oh, do we have that in there?
Oh, is
too?
it in, it is in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those.
You know, the
Yeah,
one thing
I think you left by the time we were doing that.
right, yeah, that was a long day. yeah.
But you had asked for it, I understand.
You asked
You know, the
for
one
it,
thing
we
I'm
did it.
not seeing,
Viewpoint 4.
the edges are so hard to understand where the building,
On some of them, but other ones he did, yeah, he didn't do it on all.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
yes.
for your
All
time.
right.
This is,
Thanks, Doug.
thank you, Doug, sorry.
Steve, could we ask what might happen, you mentioned workshops, 'cause we are not, and I would want to reiterate, we're not the public either. I mean, I feel like the public hasn't had its day in court here. I mean, maybe 2 people will come, but if you,
But we'll still,
No, but, you know,
When we had the presentation at the library, people came.
that was well advertised.
yeah,
So,
I mean,
but to be honest with you, I think there were more people at the community center than there were at the library.
Although again, the paper reported 30 people, maybe the reporter was late for the June
there may have been,
2014, including what felt like a
The third of the meeting,
yeah.
yeah, I think my memory is that the first 2 meetings were very well attended to the point of standing room only.
people weren't as upset the second time because we had gotten better, so the third one. But ideally, we'd have meetings here
the elevation, is that the height
and go through
of the one-story
something
flat roof?
similar to today.
Yes.
Two-story flat roof, yeah.
I
So
agree.
think it's the difference.
I mean, and a
So
presentation
it's the
public
difference in
meeting
the height, at 13 feet.
doesn't lend itself to
One
that.
story
So maybe
flat
having a
roof and
series
two-story
of,
flat roof.
RFID.
we just haven't
That's what I
really
think,
cleared
I
up,
think that's the height.
we aren't dictating it.
And there's still a lot of views out there. I hear, watching the comments on the petitions and other things that come in that don't even make it on petitions.
There's
That's above sea level.
Just there's criticism about what's being called a salt box, maybe in its shape, but the steel and stone and glass,
Right, we have so much to
not
get into.
reminiscent of a salt box to some.
The stone, or
Yeah, I don't want to get, I'm not an expert, but I'm sharing there are a lot of other views than even those
Yeah,
expressed today.
and those things are,
I gotta go.
Okay, hey, thanks Bob, thanks for your time, good luck.
Not on this.
they determine that one story flat being will go up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to motivate.
That's what this line
That's
is.
what that line is.
One-story building.
The flat roof,
You did make some meetings.
That public response, we recommend.
It was really rough.
That's below the,
That was the transfer wall again.
Don't buy into this stuff.
So you have to find the
When
right
you leave it.
technology.
Oh,
And
it's the same distance.
This might be
Yep.
one of them.
See, that's the transfer bridge there. 2 stories up there, 1 story is below.
There's a lot to
Well, I appreciate all the you've given us. Making us learn,
saying
I've lived here my whole life, on and on.
So I thought he was going to show us
Thanks
the new
for coming,
plan for the
everyone.
last.
Miss these things
Interesting.
continually. Catch up if possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When will the architect's latest
Yeah, I
be
don't
revealed?
know.
Because you're not going to show that today. So you don't have it.
Oh, the reduced salt box?
And you can, and if you thinking about, remote queuing, remote ticketing.
That's the reduced salt.
Remote check-in, whatever.
There. So it's just the,
It's just a,
oh, I see at the end.
This is what was, the other day.
just the beginning.
Well, they wanted to do it.
Steve, would I be the first to point out that this architect does not do
So there's.
non-steel
There are security.
shingle buildings? He does metal, glass, stone. This guy, I mean,
The choice for the materials, first of all,
He's gonna build the wall.
hopefully never, but that's all
an
right.
perfect example of anything that looks remotely like the Cape is the building we're in right now, the barn. But I guess he must have been, he was not chosen for his traditional Cape skill
Well,
set.
actually, if you look at the institutional buildings in which They are,
Oh, that's what you were thinking
I mean,
about.
right, not residential. And you have to look
That
at,
is where all those comments are killing you, though, with how jarring this is to the community.
Can I ask you one question that some of the gang have asked you? What's has been the impact of the HMS report, consulting report,
And then it takes more than 30 seconds
insurance?
plus or minus for
Has
that
the-
vehicle to get down there. Then you go down the line and do a secondary.
our insurance,
You've got the stuff in the library?
No, let me take two of these to the library, okay, for the whistle.
and some of them don't have all the pages.
Okay, how do I know?
Because
This one
there were
looks
just
pretty
too many
big.
ones.
I
Well,
have one copy.
I think these are the ones without all the pages.
no, that's something.
They do or don't?
Do not.
Insurance has not recoiled from,
No, they look at our, this one, I think has all the pages. I think so.
Thank you, I feel sad.
They look at our loss ratio,
yeah.
which is pretty good.
So regardless of what the consulting report has to say, a forecast, they're not.
They send an adjuster, they send a claims person, he reviews our operations, he does all this. He actually comes in and makes recommendations, periodically, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
So they're,
So it's important to you to move them onto the vote test.
remember,
Yeah, okay.
what they're complaining about isn't necessarily something that would be covered by insurance.
Understand my point.
Simply mechanical breakdown.
Yes,
That
yes,
you
yes,
guys
yeah.
are thinking about some of these issues.
Wait, by the way,
Big guy,
Hopefully that'll sign. Say, you were in a meeting with Bob Davis and Steve Sayers.
thank you.
Okay.
But this was good.
Lock him up.
Thanks, Steve.
Until next time. Yes, and you too.
Thanks, and yeah, thanks for your
That's right.
time, and,
So you gonna see the date
Less than 10%.
of
Anyway.
reconvening over New Bedford, or is that no longer going to be on your plate? Well, the New Bedford conversation, is there going to be a new point person, or?
I'm willing to do whatever they ask me
I see.
between my vacations.
yes, yes,
Well, there are some.
us too, because there is a big New Bedford, but anyway, diversity and there's other ways, and the vineyard is
Bigelow Street.
talking more openly a bit about the need for diversity.
Which house?
Yes. I mean, their real security lies in more diversity. So,
All right, I have to do a few more things, but I have the bus that doesn't wait for me.
yes, yes. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, thanks very much.